Hi, I'm Dr. Nancy Crupi. I'm a biologist with 15 years of academic research experience internationally, and I've been working on a lot of different things, and ultimately I have also had to overcome a lot of personal challenges. I'm here to guide you towards awakening and ego death. Ego death and trauma healing are the most important tasks we need to accomplish today for humanity. The second season of the New Earth podcast is going to be specifically focused on giving you stories so that you see the trails and what kind of breadcrumbs you need to follow for you to reach your own ego death, for you to reach your own trauma healing, and for you to embody your highest self finally. Let's start. Hello, everyone, and welcome again to a new episode of the New Earth podcast. We have today an incredible guest. She's Tori Wildebird. She's an artist and a writer, and she has an incredible story of healing and awakening and really kind of like healing ourselves and loving ourselves in the best, most possible way. Hi, Tori. How are you today?
Hi, Nancy. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. It's kind of cold today in LA, but we're
hmm
surviving. It's like we
hmm
say cold. I think like people understand that this is not even winter, but I feel like my body got used to it. Where are you at right now?
I'm in Topanga.
Ooh, Topanga. How's the weather there?
It's nice. It's nice. It was sunnier this morning, but now it's cloudy and it feels like a nice winter, July or January 3rd.
Woo! We are just in 2025. Today's January 2023rd, January 3rd, 2025, but we're gonna be hearing it like in a different time. So this is not going to be aired today, but it's probably gonna be in a month or so. So
Okay.
tell me, so where are you at right now? So you're an artist, you're a writer. What do you write
hmm
about?
Well, I write about the human experience. I just finished a book. It's called Material of Immaterial, and it documents my process out of my own suffering. And it is I took 3 years where I got to know myself and got to feel my way out of my own pain. And um, during that time, I started voice recording because I was very lost and confused. So I was voice recording my experience, the highs and the lows. So the book is my art and my heart. And the book is the exact transcriptions of those voice records during that time of a 3 year process out of my own suffering.
Wow, this is incredible. And it's like, I love it because I think the reason why for this podcast is exactly this, that I feel like our brain grows if it uh if it kind of tunes into the frequency of growth. And the frequency of growth is ultimately not something steady, it's a journey, right? And so that's why I'm giving people journeys, because if you have journeys, then your brain understands the trail and can follow the breadcrumbs. So I think this is beautiful because I imagine your voice, your way of talking and the things you were saying changed through time, right?
Of course. Yeah, the book, the arc of the process, I broke into the in breath, the climax, and the out breath.
Mm.
And it's through the seasons of my life. And it's through the perspective of the masculine, the feminine, and the witness, because that was how I experienced it. And that's kind of my understanding of how we experience ourselves is either through the masculine, the feminine, the witness. And so the book is that's kind of the breakdown. And the art in the book is I photograph Mother Nature less than 3 inches away. And I take those images and I flip them, mirror them, I repeat them. And out comes these really beautiful patterns from inside, it could be inside lichen or crystals or leaves or bark or, water, whatever it is. And I got into doing that right after my daughter was born, the artist within me was born, and a huge creative channel opened up. And I think at that time I hadn't processed all of my trauma and all of what I needed to process. And I was starting to really look for the depths within me, but I wasn't quite ready to feel through the depths within me. So I started photographing nature really up close and getting closer and closer and closer. And I was a marvel at how beautiful nature gets the closer and closer you get to her. And ultimately, I think I was falling in love with deep parts of myself in falling in love with nature and beginning a very beautiful reciprocal relationship that I still carry forward with Mama Nature today.
I love it. I love it. And guys, I've seen her books, like her creations in her website, and it's just incredible. Like I love those patterns, and I can see the love really coming through your book. It's really, really incredible what you've done. And from just like, because I feel like we have this idea that we cannot be creator over nature, but ultimately what you've done, you have taken nature and you have sampled it to create on top of it, and so you have
Mm,
created through nature with nature something that is a superstructure of it, something that is beyond the structure of nature, and that has to do with fractals and with geometrical patterns, which is also how the conscious part of our brain, the cortical brain, works. Our cortical brain, which is the part in which we get when we start awakening to consciousness, is a part of the brain that is very good at understanding patterns and like structures. And
mm,
so that's why, like you see all of these logos also of all of these new spiritual things and Burning Man and all this stuff that has to do with fractals and patterns and geometrical things. There's so much association with, for example, psychedelic medicines, a use of
mm,
psychedelics and patterns. And because when you start reactivating the pineal gland and the conscious brain, then you start being more seeing the world in patterns and like really focusing on like suddenly all of these structures pop up for you. And so I think that has been also very functional to your journey. Like I don't think you realize that you had, as you're saying, right, a portal opened, and so you start doing these things. But ultimately what we do is always functional to ourselves. Like sometimes I'm amazed of how much I do things so intuitively, and then I understand afterwards why my
mhm,
body was telling me to do that, right?
mhm,
And it's because when we are in a path, and it's like we already are in that trail, and so the destination is already set. We have to get there. And so we ultimately do things that are already functional and they already introduce us to that. And so I think the fact that you started doing all of these geometrical things was because you were awakening to your consciousness. You were getting towards your own cortical brain, your own parts of the brain that understood patterns better. And this has a lot to do with awakening from different kinds of, manipulations and gaslighting, because at that time we
mm,
don't have, and we all go through that, like whether it is for relationships or whether it is from the matrix of society, we all have a time in our life in which we are gaslit. And so we disconnect from this capability of understanding patterns, because if you understand patterns, then you cannot subscribe a fictitious reality, because your intuition is going to
mm,
tell you, hey, this doesn't make any sense, right? And so we all go through that part of life in which we disconnect from patterns and from our intuition and from our capability of connecting the dots. And then we reawaken to it, and we finally start doing things that are basically an exercising, a training of that part of the brain that we need to do that. So I think it's beautiful what you've done. And it's interesting. I think I don't talk at all about motherhood in this podcast because I'm not a mother probably. And so I don't have that part of me that I don't have that experience. But I think it's very interesting that I feel like I have never considered that maybe also during having a child or during motherhood, a woman may also experience Kundalini awakenings or chakra openings, or
mm,
like, like things that have to do with unlocking something that was blocked at the physical energetic level.
mhm,
And I had never considered that. I feel like we don't consider women who have children as spiritual beings, and instead it's the opposite. Like women, mothers are the highest form of spiritual being on the planet, are the ones that create life. And so it's really, I feel like we need to really touch more on this topic. So tell me more about that experience specifically.
It was incredible what her birth did to me. It was an enormous unlocking. Um, I had wanted a family my whole life. You know, I really, it was, I really, really did. And when she was born and they handed her to me, I recognized in that moment that she had been with me since I was 12 years old. I felt her my whole I could identify once I met her energy. I was like, you've been here for decades. You've been here the whole almost the whole time. Around the same age that I had a big trauma was, I think that around it was around when she showed up in my consciousness. And so her name is Birdie. And at my wedding, I didn't have any. This came way later. I named her when I was pregnant. But at my wedding, it's so interesting. I had vintage bird cages all of the filled with flowers that were on all the tables, and I had these enormous white feather balls that I had made that lit the tent of the wedding. And I didn't have like a relationship with birds. I wasn't into birding or anything like that. And when her name came to me and I said it out loud, my husband at the time said, "Yes, that's it." And I just think that I see the little breadcrumbs of little pieces of evidence how she was with me the whole time. And when she was born, well, first of all, when I got pregnant, that was the first time that my first experience was stepping into sobriety. And overnight, so I found out that I was pregnant on New Year's Eve day, and I was 32 years old. And like I said, I'd always wanted a family, but I hadn't factored in what that experience would be like of coming into sobriety for the first time in decades. And doing so while being pregnant, it was very profound. It was very challenging, to say the least. But in that connection with her and in that deeper connection to myself and all of a sudden, a new purpose and a higher purpose. And I think my divine purpose ultimately was within the arrival of her in my body. And then ultimately, for sure, when I birthed her, everything kind of aligned for me in a way that it never had before. And I was able to start moving towards life less in the chaos and more towards something bigger than me and understanding something was bigger than me. And so when she was born, it was within a year, I was taking the photos and I developed a huge relationship with crystals, and I had a huge crystal collection, and I started making these amulets where I would fuse unique crystals with unusual antiquities, like pieces of opera glasses from the late 1800s, and putting together these little sculptural stories of all unique things from nature and found objects to as these artisanal pieces that are otherworldly and other dimensional. And I believe that the crystals that I was reaching for, I think, because we are nature. We are the same thing. The patterns in nature are the patterns in us. And Mama Earth is filled with jewels and crystals and just a rainbow of deliciousness that's unbelievable. And that's within all of our chakras as well. And like it's similar to the photography that I was doing and photographing the stamen of flowers, I was reaching for these really beautiful, unusual crystals to put together these stories similar to the stories within me that I was yet to come to learn that I was the same thing as nature. Because had you told me back then that I had the same beauty within me that Mama Nature does, I would have never believed you. But after having gone through my process of my own transformation and taking the time to sit within the hell realm and the heaven realm within, I now recognize and understand and really identify with the beauty that is within nature is also within me. And Birdie's birth definitely opens that up.
I love it. I love this story. And I love the idea that the fact that she was with you for the whole time, I think it's incredible.
Mm.
And I believe it. I believe that, you know, our kids, our children may come to us in the form of energy, before we give birth to them, and so it's like
Mhm.
in the universe, everything is like gravitate around each other, right? Like the universal gravitation of things, the universal evolution of things. It's really like we are attracted to each other in a sense based on the purpose we have, and like atoms and electrons and neutrons, it's the same at the energetic level, it's the same at every level. So I truly believe that you had this satellite around you for the whole time, and you're like, finally, I found you. And it makes all total sense also that once you gave birth to her, you finally felt whole, you finally felt connected,
Mhm.
because it was a piece of you that was there already. It's just that you were not experiencing it at the physical level. You were only having these energetic feelings. I really loved your story. It's incredible.
Mhm.
And yes, I think you're right. And I think, again, like I love how you function. Like I love how your brain functions with putting together this higher superstructural things. It is also the man-made things, the human-made things, like the objects, antiquities, and all these things. And then you are capable of understanding that this is ultimately a derivative of nature, of crystals, of the same kind of symmetries that we find in nature. It's just that it's the blooming of it. We are nature, and what we do is also nature. I feel like there is a lot of misconception sometimes about the fact that nature is this and we are dirty instead. Nature is beautiful and we
Mhm.
are the bad ones. Nature is incredible and we are
Mhm.
destroying the earth. It's not us. I feel like there is a lot of misconception I have to tell people all the time that it's not, there are two different kinds of people in the world. And this is not because it's good or bad. There are people who really, genetically speaking, have already cleansed from their trauma in a sense. And so they see this beauty, they're capable of seeing this beauty and of blooming and of loving because they are in the part of the brain that allows them to do that. And because their genetic and epigenetic imprinting allows them to do that. And there are people who still have a lot of deep unresolved trauma instead, and they keep making the
Mhm.
same unsustainable choices all the time to be opportunistic and to exploit others, exploit the planet. And these two people don't overlap. These are two different kinds of people. And so these are people that need healing, that maybe are going to be healing in the next lifetime, not even now. That those are just pieces of the earth that need healing. And so it's not that we are not the earth. It's not that that what we make, it's separate and it's bad and it's pollution and it's trash, like that's not true. We can make a lot of art, we can make a lot of things that create beauty, that we can create beauty, we can create as much as nature can create, because we are nature, and so we are vessels of the same energy, creative energy that Mother Earth uses for us to create us and to create things through us. It's all a matter of deciding to create and not to pollute, deciding to make
Mhm.
art instead of exploit, deciding to love, So this is really the difference. And so a lot of people, I feel like, carry a lot of guilt, that because they don't realize that, there are people who make choices that are unsustainable, but it's not necessarily them, like they may have cleansed already from that kind of trauma, from that kind of compulsion. And so we carry a lot of guilt and a lot of feelings that really come from the world around us being not healthy, being unconscious, being traumatized, being hurt. And so we internalize all of that pain as empaths. We internalize all of that pain and we feel like, oh, maybe this comes from me too. I'm dirty too. I'm bad
Mhm.
too. I'm not enough too. I'm polluting the earth too. And I see a lot of people today being like, the humanity has to finish because we are destroying this planet. No, it is not humanity that has to disappear, from this planet. We need to heal those who are exploiting the planet. And so I feel like it's really important for people to hear this today, because a lot of people go in depression and in this spiral, believing that it's their fault, that they are in some way participants in this because they're human too, because it's all about
Mhm.
humanity. But it's not humanity. There are certain people in humanity that are traumatized, and there are others who are not. So we really need to make a distinction here. And if you're not traumatized, you should feel allowed to shine and to heal others. Because if you don't do that, then we go backward, right? We go backward into the unconsciousness, into wounding ourselves. So tell
Mm.
me more how you got here though. Like first of all, do you have your book there? Can you show a page
Mm-hmm.
of it?
Right here. Well, I wanted to say also, so the subtitle, so this is it, material and
Material
material.
material. I love it. And can you open it?
Um,
Just
yeah,
one
yeah.
round.
Yeah, and then I'll speak. So here's,
Guys, I want
um,
to see like seriously, like I don't know how
one.
like the patterns you have created are really, really beautiful. And I can see how yeah, they're really beautiful. And to think that this is nature. So this is not something that she created on a computer. This is nature, but like twisted and turned and like, like made into geometrical patterns at the higher level than what nature was already doing. So this is so, so gorgeous. So gorgeous. Can you use it to like create, I don't know, a tapestry or like any sort of,
Yeah.
can
Oh
people do
yeah,
that?
yeah. I've printed the patterns on textiles. I've created
Oh,
textiles, and I've made a meditation line. I make scarves. I make, blankets, throws, sheets, all sorts of things. I made a lot of things. And I was going to move forward with the business, and then divorce was filed. And that's when divorce was filed, that's when my whole life shifted, and I shifted into my healing. So I'm going to go back into it. I just don't know exactly what I'm going to do with it. But I mean, you can print on anything. I've made wallpapers, and
beautiful.
it's really beautiful as a wallpaper.
It's beautiful and it's also healing. I can see how it's really like it shines a light of healing, like it's really
Mm-hmm.
beautiful. I think people, our brain can recognize, our body, our brain, and our spirit can recognize when things come from love and from healing or when they don't, and so
Yeah.
when art is comes from that source, then it's also healing to have it around and to, conceptually speaking, in all kinds of ways, looking at it, being around it has already a potential healing effect. So I love that you're doing that. So tell me about your life. How did you, I think your life that you like, your whole story is so interesting. And I think it can be very, very useful to really a lot of women out there. And I would like for you to start from the very beginning to tell me how you got here. Like, where are you from?
That's such an interesting question for me, because there's nowhere that I feel I'm from. I've been in Los Angeles since I was 18, so that's home to me. I was born in Memphis, and then I spent time in the Midwest in Kansas City. And then I moved to Southern California, and then I moved to Northern California, and then I came back down for to Southern California for college. I spent summers in northern Minnesota on the border of Canada at a trip camp, for 2 months every summer, doing Boundary Waters and Quetico trips, and did a lot of traveling growing up as well. Yeah, I went to 4 high schools, so there's a lot of movement. One high school in the Midwest, one in Southern California, one in Northern California, one in Australia. So,
That's right. Yeah, that's a lot, in fact. A lot of movement.
yeah, it was a bit of movement, a bit of movement. Uh, so that's where I'm from. Um, and I just always think the question is very interesting because it says a lot. And it's a challenging one for me because I am my home. I am my center. I am where I'm from. Wherever I am is my home. And it's been that way for a very long time. And it was a hard one for me to finally get to this place with it. I now have, at least it's a little bit easier with my having my daughter. When people ask about my family, I'm not in contact with family. It's been a very long time, and it was needed. It was just kind of the natural step. uh, so the environment growing up was very harsh, very critical, and very judgmental, very temperamental, and very immature, irrational, hysterical, um, angry, very unsafe, created a very deep sense of lack of safety and instability. And so that was kind of the foundation of what directed the course of my life. And the 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 early years were very challenging, and I stayed very clear and strong as much as I possibly could outside of that. And then at the age of 12, I was raped on a family vacation, and in that moment, all of the painful environment that I was growing up in, that I was somehow able to stay outside of, I absorbed as truth. And I allowed it to become my own truth. And I allowed the messaging of the hostility and the unworthiness and the disposability and then my being a nuisance and all of these things, all of a sudden they became true for me and I believed them. And I think it was all of it's in divine perfection, right? There's nothing that is a mistake in this life as a human being. And I see now how the opportunity of solidifying what I was so afraid to be true in that trauma became true for me and caused me, or if not, another way of looking at, allowed me to get so lost in that truth that I had to get that lost. I had to get that far lost and deep in the darkness. I had to hit rock bottom in order to find the truth of who I am. Had there been any support, had there been any love, had there been any stability, had there been any light that was there, I wouldn't have gotten so lost to find the full spectrum of my being. So it caused me to go to the farthest edge of my being, the deepest depth of the well of hell, where there was nowhere else to go. So I had to turn around and start that journey back home to the journey back home within, the walk home back to myself. And I didn't even know what I was walking towards. I had no indication. I had no, I had no evidence. There was nothing that I could call on or use as example as love or light to lean towards or to walk towards. All I knew was I was done with the dark. I hit a moment in my divorce where I had a full body experience, and the words were no more pain, no more darkness, and no more dysfunction. And in that moment, that was the beginning of my walk home. So I started I didn't know where I was going or what that meant. But at that time, I was on medications. They were medicating me for ADD, for anxiety, and for depression. So, and heavily medicated.
See, this when since the time in which you were you had that experience, that trauma, then you started basically going into sort of depression. Like you were like, did you tell your parents? Did you tell your family that you
No, there was no one to tell. I had no one to tell. That's the kind of situation it was. There was no safe outlet. So I started the war that I was experiencing on the outside. I took it within myself. And I was 12 years old. I was in sixth grade. It happened at Christmas time, that rape. And by New Year's Eve, I was drinking. And that started the beginning of decades of substance abuse.
wow. So you had never
Yes.
drunk before, and then a few days later after the rape, you didn't have anybody to tell anything to. So do you feel like, because this is something that is a major problem in the United States, that I feel like society intentionally associates alcohol with adulting, drinking alcohol with adulting. And so I feel like, do you feel like you have in some way made that association to be like, now that this has happened to me, because I'm sure that was your first time most likely. And so do you feel like you have associated that with adulting in a sense, not being able to call it a rape, not being able to say this has been an abuse for me. You had to to basically include it in this is the norm in society, and as much as this is normal, drinking is normal.
No, I wanted the pain to go away.
You just wanted the pain to. How did you know that alcohol was gonna make the pain go away?
Um, I don't remember. I don't know. I think probably I have witnessed it, you know, for many years. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist, even as a child, to recognize that alcohol is it numbs,
Yeah,
you
it now
know.
people down. So you basically made the association. I want this pain to go away. And so because of that, you were like, I want my parents to, I want to, I'm gonna drink. So as my parents did, my parents or people you have observed did, then you're like, I'm gonna do the same to myself. I'm gonna drink.
I don't I don't know how super conscious of a decision it is when you're in that amount of confusion and disorientation. I don't know. I also don't remember much of what it felt like. All I remember was I do remember I was at my friend's house on New Year's Eve and I instigated it to get into the parents' liquor cabinet.
Mm.
And that was the beginning of, about, I don't remember much for the rest of that year or seventh grade or eighth grade. But the memories that I do have were I was making poorer and poorer choices, getting into more and more substance use. I started smoking weed. I started smoking cigarettes. And then by ninth grade, I was into psychedelics, and it just became a whole thing. And I think ultimately it's in that level of harshness, in that level of ridicule, environments, in environments of lack of safety where there is not even one person to go to. For some reason, within my being, I didn't have the capacity to hold it. I had to, um, that was, yeah, that was what I leaned into. And, I have a new friend that used the term self erasure the other day. And when he said it, I really identified with it. I believe that for many, many years, I was trying to erase myself. I was trying to eliminate the experience of being here
Wow.
because embodiment was really, really painful when there's nowhere to turn that's safe and stable or loving. And unfortunately, I'm not unusual. I'm not unique. Maybe I'm a little bit unusual, but it's not totally unique. I think a lot of people on this planet live in these states and go their whole lives. And for whatever reason, by the grace of God, I had the clarion call that hit me at 42 years old that said, no more. I'm not going to do it anymore. And the willingness and the courage to sit through all of that pain that I had been avoiding for all of those decades. It's not for the faint of heart. It's serious work. It's hard work to because the only way out of it is through the pain of it. There's no way to go around it, to get through to the other side to where I am now, but it's totally doable.
Yeah, it's like the reason why I give people stories is because of that, because I feel like there are some people like you who have the resilience to overcome certain things. And then once you're on the other side, you're like, okay, as you're saying, there's so many people who suffer the same things. There are so many people in the world who try to erase themselves every day. And so I have overcome that compulsion. I have overcome that kind of behavior. And now I want to go back and tell them you can love yourself, and you've done that in a beautiful way also, that you have transformed it into art that people can just look at and heal. And it's really like, I'm sorry for your story. It's really, unfortunately, happens, as you're saying, to a lot of women, to a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people. And it's not just about rape, it's about a lot of kinds of abuses that have to do with, making us feel unworthy, making us feel disposable. I feel like men have that kind of trauma in different ways because men tend to not be raped as much as women, or in completely different ways that tend to be a little lesser violent in a sense. And I feel like men have the same trauma in other ways, in which, they are disposed by women who use them for provide as providers, like in a lot of
Mm,
different ways. And I do know people like this that they are like 60, 50, and they still are alcoholic and they still try to erase themselves every day because
mhm,
they have the same kind of trauma of feeling disposable, and like I think this is a huge, huge topic of feeling disposable, that is something that really makes you feel like you're an object. And if you're an
mhm.
object, like you're nothing, why would you have to love yourself? Why would you have to? And the disconnection from Mother Nature also makes a lot of sense, because if you're an
Yeah.
object, you're not connected. If you're an object, you're not nature, and the fact that you went back to it was the healing that you needed. that
Mhm,
that and it's really incredible. So, and do you feel like, because you mentioned that earlier, you said that you had the energy of your child with you since you were 12, I believe you said. So
mhm.
do you feel like, is it related in any way
Related in what, how do
to
you mean?
your experience of abuse?
Is it related
Because you
to,
said that it was since you were 12, like when did these
yeah. Oh, her timing of when I started to feel her?
yeah.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Oh
For
yeah.
sure. She's an amazing blessing, an amazing gift. And I believe that she probably, her soul, like she stepped in as as a witness, as someone to be there along with me. What, because like I said, like I shared, within that trauma, there was a big crack in me. And I think in knowing her now and the relationship that we have now, I believe she's seen the whole thing. She's been there for the whole thing. And ultimately, I think that she's probably a gift from the divine to have stepped in to go along with me while not on this plane, but on other planes, during those years, for sure.
I love it. I love it. It's really
Because
like,
it's remarkable. She's like, she's 13 years old, and the wisdom within her and the way our relationship, this is, it's so much deeper than just what's here and what we've been through in the past 13 years.
yeah, it's beautiful. I think it makes also sense from an energetic standpoint, like you had an experience which ultimately made you feel disposable and not worthy, and instead, and it was related to motherhood, and maybe, something made you realize that from things like that can stem also beautiful things, for example, like having a daughter, like that was also not just the sign that you were disposable, but also the sign that you were a potential mother, that you can bring life into the world, and that was also your gift, the fact that you're a woman, that you are made physically as you are, and so because of that you can have a child, you can create life, and you can be a creator of life, which is beautiful. I think it was like a reminder, like kind of like something put close to you, so that energetically speaking you will be healed with the opposite of what you have experienced, which is,
Mm,
from being disposable and being nothing to being the creator of life.
mm,
I think it's a beautiful thing. And I think this happens all the time to us. Like when we have trauma that is very deep, energetically speaking, we really create this asymmetry, is like as above so below, that's how the universe works. And so when we create this deep, then a peak follows, as much as, when people become very, very poor at some point, then suddenly they become rich too, like there's in different ways that have nothing to do with money sometimes, like
mhm,
this fact that
mhm,
you have to touch rock bottom, but once you touch rock bottom, then all those things that you wear and the wealth that you had already and you're just disconnected from suddenly flows in because you're empty, and those things can flow in. So it's really like this energetic thing of having from one side something very deeply dark happening to you, and so that triggers something very bright and beautiful to shine on you as well.
mhm,
And that's
mhm.
how I feel
The
like
polarity.
the polarity exactly of
Yeah.
the universe, like the ups and downs of the universe. And so since then, So you got married so from like you said you don't remember a lot, but like from 12 to when did you get married?
32.
32. So from 12 to 32 is like 20 years. What happened during those
Mhm.
20 years?
So the subtitle of the book is Overcoming Domination, Dependency, and Disempowerment.
Okay.
And so that was the curriculum for sure for the next 20 years. I create there was the So I think it's very interesting. I'm completely self-taught. I haven't studied anything. I haven't followed anything. I haven't, my understanding of my own experience and what I've been through in my own awakening and my own healing, it has been deeply, deeply divinely guided from my own intuition and my own guides and my own oversoul and higher selves. So I don't have reference points to understand the trauma and this, that, and the other. I don't have the popular language and the cultural jargon to speak to what happened. So it's very layman's terms. So forgive me for that.
Oh, don't
But
worry. Like this is the real experience, like I'm for like just to give a like parenthesis here is just like I am a scientist, but I love interviewing people who are not scientists because science has gone too far into things that don't make any sense. And so right now we need to go back to the real human experience so that we can finally really give people the truth because science has now become so politicized and including psychology, all kinds of science that create these terms and words and references. It's so politicized and so manipulated by pharmaceutical companies that it's really not truthful. And so that doesn't really describe the human experience. Instead, it objectifies it to make humans disposable, to make humans a farm that we are used and abused just by corporations. And so your experience is actually more valuable, and the terms you're going to be using are more valuable than anything in any books. So please go ahead.
Okay, okay. Uh, so as I look back, it's very interesting. It's like the perpetrator and the victim, right? So in being the victim of that experience, the rape, and in a very volatile, unhealthy environment growing up, then I became the dominator of my own being, my own experience. In the abandonment, then I abandoned myself. In the disempowerment within the trauma, I then disempowered myself. Um, in the dependency of I subjected myself to my own dependency. I guess what I'm trying to say is there is no victim and there is no perpetrator, or we are both at all points and moments within the whole spectrum. And I just think it's an interesting the whole so those next 2 decades became about me just in that spiral of victim perpetrator, victim perpetrator, victim perpetrator, and with myself or with others. And there was many years of a lot of promiscuity, heavy drug use, calling it partying, but like I was just in those types of circles in avoidance of sitting in presence, sitting in embodiment, sitting in clarity, sitting in my being, and being able to be okay with that without distraction of any kind. And so I got through high school, I got into college remarkably, and I I went to college, and it was everything was a means to an end of just numbing. And sure, I was great fun. People thought I was a lot of fun. There was no shortage of fun. But when I look back, the underlying was the pain, so much pain. And then I did get married. I met he's now my ex-husband, but we met at 25, and then we were married, and and then the pregnancy. And then then the creative channel opening when Birdie was born. And at that point, the 7 years between when she was born and when divorce was filed, because I had not sat with and dealt with the truth of who I was and was running from the truth of the pain and pushing it away and suffocating it. It just built and built and built and built and built. And at that point, when divorce was filed, was when I had the experience of no more pain, no more darkness, no more dysfunction. And I started the 3-year process of every other week when my daughter was with her dad. I would sit in stillness, silence, and solitude and come to know myself. And I took up meditation, and I was working with a medium those years. And she works with the timelines and dimensions. And so she steps into your consciousness and she's able to see the interferences and disturbances. She works at a cellular level, at the DNA level, and she works with nature spirits and the Devic realm and the elemental kingdom. And she commands the light to clear anything that is not of our true divine blueprint. And I worked with her almost every month. There was no personal relationship. It was over the phone. It was a phone session. And I would know based on that session and what came up within me, what I was to sit through and work through each month. And that was ultimately how I was able to clear myself. Because she was just clearing and aligning, clearing and aligning, clearing and aligning, from all the layers of my being that I don't understand. She can see much more than I can. And I certainly didn't understand much, but I was just choosing to trust the process. And in those sessions, I was introduced to true divine light, like actually what the light was, and how sweet it is, and how forgiving it is, and how kind it is, and patient and loving and beautiful and intelligent and hilarious and expansive. And all I wanted was more. I knew I was home. So my goal was, all I knew was that I was going to cultivate within myself and within my life what I was seeking in those sessions. And slowly over time, that which I sought, I became. And living in that much meditative state is the lines get a little blurry between whatever dimension we're in when we're in meditative state and this dimension. And so I was able to, it all kind of, thank God I started voice recording my experiences, because I recorded the brilliance of these deep, beautiful meditations that had been activated from the openings from my work with her, that I was reaching towards and reaching to and leaning towards. And I think, what is that saying? You take one step towards God and God takes three towards you.
Oh, I didn't know
It was
that.
very, yeah, well, it makes sense, right? Like, I don't know if you can, from experientially, if you can relate to that, but it is
Oh,
very, very
absolutely.
true.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Um, so that's kind of how it was like this, it was
Yeah.
like an in and out, in and out, in and out, until I finally did reach my own alignment and my own harmony. And my life became very harmonious and became this beautiful symphony and of reciprocity and, of just really loving experience. And of course, the hell realm, I can still tap into it. It's still right here, like doubt comes up or distrust comes up or, insecurities come up or, but I can recognize that it is not my truth, that I am out of alignment. And I can recognize that it's either an old program or an old pattern or, remnants of old dysfunctional behavior or whatever it is, or just negative belief system or dysfunctional belief systems. So it's just all choice to stay out of that and choose to lean into what I've cultivated and sit in meditation every single day and tap into and, cultivate deeper and deeper levels of in my own being and ground myself or root myself in that. It's all choice, right? every single moment is a choice. Where do we want to go with it? Do you want to go into the, the ego cage of the mind, or do we want to go into the highest potential of every of ourselves and the moment and others? We have that choice in every minute, or every moment. And I think what you were saying with earlier of like being on this planet, it's very confusing to be in this place and to witness, the atrocities and the horrors and the violence that people commit to themselves and upon each other and upon, the nature of this planet. Um, but I think ultimately we're just deeply out of alignment, the programming and the conditioning and the indoctrinations and the education and all of it has us all very out of alignment. But we
Absolutely.
can align. I'm an example of it. Like if I can do it on my own in 3 years of silent stillness and solitude, using ultimately nothing more than just courage and willpower and trust and faith, we can totally get through this.
I love
I
it.
believe.
I believe too, and I love your story. And like one of the reasons why I interview people like healers or people who have healed is because you shine a light that is different than most people's. It's like I can tell that you're just so beautiful inside out. Like, and this light that you shine is the light of alignment, is the light of you having recalibrated your inner intuition and being recalibrated on your light, on your innocence, on your innocence. Like I talk a lot about us killing our light of innocence, which is what you've done when you were 12. Like someone tried to trauma use your innocence as a way to hurt you. And so you had to scapegoat that innocence for 20 years. You had to put it down, to oppress it, to, scapegoat it just means that you're like, you're not good enough because thanks to you, I've been abused, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
because of that, we then tend to tell ourselves that we are not enough, that you don't deserve, but that light is who we really are. And so you can't detach from your true self. That's impossible, right? The only thing you can do is to numb yourself down, is to like use substances to forget that you are that, to forget
Mm-hmm.
that what you are has exposed you to being abused. And I think it all comes down, and that's why I always care about telling people that there are two kinds of people in the world. And it's not about being good or bad. It's about some people are just unconscious and deeply traumatized. They forgot they were all together on this planet in this huge journey that life is, and they just forgot. They're traumatized. And so unfortunately, they are the ones that then perpetuate trauma against others. But once you understand that, then you're not gonna scapegoat your light anymore, and that's exactly what you have understood, because through that you enter the cycle, as you said, of victim perpetrator, victim perpetrator. Ultimately, you have become the own perpetrator of the same trauma to yourself. And so as much as they have done it to you, and they've done it to themselves too, because people who traumatize others are people who do the same that you have done to yourself for 20 years. Those are the same kind of people that then do things like that, in a sense, because those are people who kill their inner light constantly, who have put away their inner light, which is their true self. And then because of that, they're lost and they start doing things that make no sense and they become dangerous to others. And those are the same kind of people that then create corporations that extract oil, that create
Mm-hmm.
corporations that kill people through pharmaceuticals, that, like these are the same kind of people. Their trauma is so big that they have to make it, to find an outlet for it. And the outlet is other people, and so they become
Mm-hmm.
perpetrators. But I feel like I have a similar experience in my life, not of rape, although I did go through various kinds of sexual abuse as well. I feel like a lot of women, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I feel like I also had I have gone through a lot of different kinds of abuses, and then I became the perpetrator of the same abuse to myself as well. And then I
Mm-hmm.
realized how when you poison yourself that way, whether it is through alcohol, substances, or even just thoughts, then you become
Mm-hmm.
the perpetrator of the same trauma against others, right? You haven't to necessarily have an outlet for it, you know. And so I also understood this victim perpetrator spiral, and I went through that as well in different ways, but like I went through
Mm-hmm.
that in like I feel like it's similar. That makes you understand, once you kill your inner light, when you feel like you're not enough, that idea, that seed is enough for you to then scapegoat yourself and think you're not enough. And then because you think you're not enough, then you have to forget that you're instead beautiful, that you're incredible, because it's too painful to remember that instead you've just been abused, because you're beautiful, because you're incredible, because you're shine a beautiful light that people are attracted to. And that's painful. That's painful. So we tend to forget. We tend to forget and to put things on top and to use substances to forget all of that. But I love what you did, and I would be like to I would like to go deeper into these meditations that you did. Like, what do you mean to sit in silence every 3 weeks? What does that entail, and how long did that last?
So, well, no, it was every other week
Every other
uh,
week.
for 3 years. So what did that look like? Basically, it was so I didn't I brought nothing forward with me from my life before. So there was no social connection. There was no family connection except for my daughter that would come in every other week. Um, and that looked like, so it looked like solitude, and it looked like stillness in terms of like, it's not that I wasn't moving. It's not like it was Vipassana. Although sometimes it was, I would go stretches of a Vipassana sometimes if I needed to do that,
What is Vipassana, just for our audience?
where you're just sitting for hours in a day in silence and just no movement, and just that is just in being, and the uncomfortability of that. And what arises in that uncomfortability is very enlightening. I think we get to know ourselves very deeply when we take away the ability to allow ourselves to get distracted in thought, allow ourselves to get distracted in feeling, and allow ourselves to get distracted in movement. So what that looked like was learning, because I didn't have a sense of who Tori was. I didn't know what that meant. I knew a distracted Tori, and I know a survivor Tori, and I knew a getting by Tori, and I knew an alleviating pain, whether it was, I mean, because drugs were just part of it. It can be media, it can be, I used to be an avid reader. I would consume, read tons, or tons of media, or you know preoccupation with what I was going to eat, who I was going to see, who I was going to connect with, where I was going to go, what I was going to, it's all distraction, or also just it's looking for a sense to quell the uncomfortability of being a human being. So, learning how to come into myself and recognize that a feeling is just a feeling, and recognize that a thought is just a thought, and to experience those mind attacks and learn how to live through them and get through them and navigate them and get to the other side. I had never done any of that. And it was also cultivating a strong sense of self love, whatever that meant. Like, because before that, I thought that love was a luxury for other people. I had no concept of what that meant. I didn't know that it simply means just taking care of yourself and listening to yourself, and trusting and knowing that whatever that is okay, and that there's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing broken or about me, nothing wrong with me, broken about me. Um, and coming into ease and comfort with allowance and acceptance of whomever I am, or whatever it is that I'm going through, that it's all okay. And forgiving myself for the lot of what I had done, and standing in my own integrity, and standing in my own authenticity, and accepting that things just are what they are, and that they don't need to be anything else. And so just coming into like this a place of truth, I guess, within. And while I don't know anything, that's for sure, I know nothing. And I think I understand even less. I learned during those years through just listening. Do I need to take a walk? Do I need to go dancing? Do I need to go for a sound bath? Do I need to listen to another, listen to a binaural beats? Do I need, whatever it is, just trusting that anything that crossed my path, to listen to that and to nourish myself until I was in a place where I was living, breathing, and moving in a place of alignment beyond just the meditations, because it's very easy to close your eyes and go into a meditative space once you've learned how to do that and live this very dreamy, because I'm very visual, this dreamy experience within my own kingdom. I have all the characters of my kingdom. I have the golden river, I have the waterfall of life, I have, the mountains of wisdom, I have the Andes mountains, I have the garden of Eden, I have the atrium of the garden, I have all the characters, the animals of my consciousness that I connect into. I have the Pegasus of ancestors, the mighty lion of leadership, the white tiger of protection, the Amora cheetah of speed. Like I have all these, and the birds and the trees that I connect into, that I spend time with, and this is my kingdom. And I have so it's very easy to come to a place of beauty and love, and all is well in that space with your eyes closed, right? But you open your eyes, you go out into the world with all of these things that are going on. And immediately within the mirror, when you haven't sorted out as I was sorting out things that were coming up during those years that I hadn't dealt with my whole life, in my mirror, something would trigger, the disposability, the unworthiness, the self-distrust, the self-doubt, the insecurities, all of those things. And that I would have to then sit, kind of learn how to navigate them and ease them and heal them. And slowly over time,
And so how
you
long
know,
would you sit in silence for how many hours?
well, in meditative silence or just silence.
I don't know exactly how that would you do that. So
During
tell me
the,
the whole process. So where would you do that?
I was at home. I was in a house on Saddle Peak in Topanga. And I spent a lot of time on the deck there. It was an east facing view. And so I would wake up and I would spend, at least an hour, if not two each morning, in meditation is the first thing I would do. And then I would, go about my day and take care of the house, take care of the things that I needed to do. Um, and then at the end of the night, at the end of the day, I would also, but all of this was in silence. I wasn't reading anything or listening to anything, um, or following anything. And I wasn't in connection or communication with others either. It was a lot of silence.
A lot of
Uh,
silence the last days.
oh, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. So when my daughter was with her dad that week, because the schedule was 1 week on, 1 week off, I would just take it in, near total silence, silence within myself for sometimes 4 hours a day, with like
So
eyes closed.
with your eyes closed. I love
Mm-hmm.
it. So, and I think you don't realize how gorgeous your fantasy is. You're like the creativity of your mind is, because I feel like all the things you mentioned are just incredible. Like I feel like you should have another book just on like how you use your creativity in your meditations to create this world that ultimately supports, the tiger of leadership and the mountains of wisdom, all of these things. It's just imagine going to this place and being like, today I need wisdom. Let me go to my mountains of wisdom. And
Mm-hmm.
this is just incredible. And I think you should definitely write another book on this, or make some, content that people can consume and see and get inspired by. And so during your meditations in silence, do you feel like you will go to these specific places or do specific things? How does it look like for you?
So this is so the most profound part of the meditation. So a year in, when I was so lost and so confused and so disoriented as to what was I doing? Where was I going with this? All I knew was I was not going to turn back, right? There was no turning back. That was when I started voice recording because in my dreams, there was a man who started showing up in my dreams. And he would say things to me like, we have been together forever. I've always been here. I've always been with you. And then he started showing up in my meditations. And one day I gathered up the courage and because he was very, very gorgeous, beautiful, powerful, sound, secure, just magnificent. And I asked him, "Are you real?" And he looked at me and he asked me in return, "Are you?" And I thought this was very funny, and a really good question and a really good point because I don't know, So I'm meeting this being in my dreams and in my meditations. Is he real or am I real?
Yeah.
Or, and who is he and who am I? Anyway, so at the time I thought I was because he was starting to show up in my sessions with the medium as well. And she helped me to understand at that time that he was my inner divine masculine, as
Mhm.
though that's like a thing that we all have. I don't know.
Yeah, we all
So
have it.
I
Like I connect with my divine masculine and feminine through my nostrils, and they do have specific characters. I mean, I don't tend to
okay.
see, I've never like seen like animals or things, not never, but like I don't usually see animals or of this sort. But I do have I feel like I perceive things in frequencies in the sense that I
Hmm.
can feel I'm a medium too. And so I also I channel frequencies. And so I perceive people and things as frequencies in reality. And so a frequency has for me a whole shape that doesn't necessarily take the shape of colors and things, but it has a multidimensional shape. But I love that you actually perceive this being. So how was it?
So once we connected and I spoke to him, then he became a very powerful teacher for me. And he taught me ultimately the greatest lesson that he taught me was how to live through my heart and how to feel through my heart. And he did he would kind of work on me I guess like you would go under a car and work on a car. That's how he would work on my being within my chakras, within
Mm,
energy centers.
mm.
Um, he would he would because he's so gorgeous and so beautiful that I fell deeply in love with him. I still am, but I would in wanting to reach for him and ultimately he so this is important. He would say often because in the higher realms, because my full name is Victoria, he would say, "Victoria, I am you, you are me, no, I am you, you are me, and we are thee." So it's all the aspects of the self. So in my writing, when I talk about the masculine, the feminine, and the witness, and I do share in the book, there are a lot of meditations. There's lots to talk about because I call him Mr. D. It's short for Mr. Delicious
Oh.
because he's truly delicious. So there is a lot. So anything through the masculine perspective in the book are stories about him, and he really he helped me to understand how to live through my heart, meaning that any way that I was living before and wanting to connect, I would reach out. This is one of the things he taught me. I would reach out, and he taught me how to receive life and move through life by first reaching in and then out. Like if that makes sense, almost kind of toroidal.
In what sense?
Um,
Also, like, if you had to give an example, what do you mean for reaching in and then out? Like, how would you do that in a regular situation?
okay, so
Because I want to give people, examples of how they can,
Yeah.
apply these things to their life. And like, you mean like reaching into your truth, what you think, and then having the outlet. That's, I feel like that's what you probably.
Well, okay, or let's just use my daughter for an example. In my loving my daughter, rather than pouring myself out to my daughter, what he taught me is to lean into myself, cultivate and gather the best of myself, and then reach out to my daughter and
I love.
connecting to her.
Oh, I love it. I love it. So that you first re reconnect with your true self. And so whatever you're pouring out doesn't come
Always.
from unconsciousness. It comes from a place of alignment, of connection, of focusing, of really like something that is you, that is really you. Because I feel like I love this. I love this advice. And I feel like, you see, like it was an interesting question, in fact, because I feel like it gives a much, much better explanation of what that means. And I think that this is totally right, in the sense that we do have to ultimately, as you said at some point, is like all of these things are really a choice. Everything we do is a choice, right? And so it's it's really a matter of choosing something that is innocence, that is light, that is purity, that is love, that is truth, over something that is not. And so for you to make that choice, you have to be conscious that there is a choice to make, because that's how evil things get done in the world, because things slip away from your consciousness. And so in moment of unconsciousness, such as when you're under substances, under the effect of substances, then in that unconsciousness, there is a lot of possibility of making you make choices that you're not present for, and that's how the
Mm-hmm.
world works, is that's really how it works. And so the fact that he told you to reach in and really reconnect with yourself and cultivate your true self like a plant, and then really reach out and give and pour out in the world only something that comes from your inner light, that comes from yourself, instead of something that bounces on you and that triggers you and makes you react in unconscious ways based on trauma, based on irrational decisions. Then instead you reach in and then you pour out and you're like, this truly comes from me, this is truly aligned, and I see how this has allowed you to live this beautiful aligned life that you're living today. And I think in general, like because I was mentioning God and the kingdom of God and light and all of these things today, this is something that is very dear to me as well. And I think what people don't understand is that the universe is like the universe, the earth, everything is really like, um, conceptually speaking, like the kingdom of God, the kingdom of light workers, all these things is really a matter of choice. It's not the same exact person. It's not a matter of location. It's not that because you're here, then you're a good person. You're there, you're a bad person. Like it's not how it works. It's a matter of choice. If you choose the light, you are in the kingdom of God. If you choose the darkness, you're going hell, in a sense. That's really how it works. And at that point, you cannot be helped. You're not part of the realm of God. You are not part of the light. You're not. You're hello. There's a kitty in a kitty in
Sugar.
hello sugar. And I love these words that you use all the time: deliciousness and sugar and sweet. It's just so beautiful how you have reconnected to the beauty and the love in the universe. And I can see how really like I had been through something similar in the sense of experiencing myself, all these self-doubt, all of these negative things, and that ultimately it was my choice to decide which ones I wanted. But that's what trauma does to us. That's what unconsciousness does to us. That puts us in that kind of gray area in which, because we are not conscious, the choices we make are unconscious. And so instead of realizing that we're making this choice between the light and darkness, we choose darkness because we scapegoat the light. We are afraid of being light. We are afraid of being innocent. We are afraid of being the person that we were and that brought us to be abused. And so because of that, then we become unconscious and we start, going into this PTSD and compulsion state and fight or flight mode, in which we automatically always choose darkness. And with darkness, I mean gaslighting and self-doubt and all these negative things. This is the experience that I had. I had this realization at some point through one of my journeys, And I realized how really the devil, what we call the devil, evil in the world is really this, is all the things that make us drift from our inner light, from our innocence, from our true self, through gaslighting, manipulations. Because the only thing that truly exists is light, right? Is innocence, is our true self. And so the only way for the darkness, in a sense, to acquire power in the world is to chip away pieces of us, chip away pieces of our power. And to chip away those pieces, it has to work through deception. It has to work through inner doubt. It has to work because if you believe you're not worth it, you're going to give your worth away. If you believe you're not beautiful, you're going to give your beauty away. If and so all of these things, and this is part of the indoctrination we're receiving. We really live in a planet that looks like we're being, colonized by aliens for how our society is working. It's so strange, right? Because we keep being indoctrinated by people who have reached a high level of power in society, who keep telling us to do things that are bad for us and forcing us into these cages and forcing us into these corporations that are just concentration camps. They're literally designed as concentration camps. And so all of these things that we get indoctrinated are ultimately against ourselves, right? They start from deceiving us, from the beauty industry making us feel not enough, from all of these indoctrinations of how a good marriage should look like in the movies. And it's never true. Who had a marriage like the one seen in the movie? It's false, because that doesn't exist. We are all traumatized. Or like all of these TV shows and movies in which they show a lot of people drinking all the time, but they're happy and fine and have great careers. That doesn't exist. If if you drink all the time, you're gonna get lost. So that thing that they show you is not real. And so we get all of these indoctrinations that are these deceptions that allow us to believe in a reality that is completely opposite to our truth. And because of that, then this darkness, people, the one that are traumatized, are chipping away pieces from us and take that power for themselves, and that's really how doubt works. And so being in the light is, being present and doing your inner work and really cultivating yourself is important, because it allows you to become present again, to become conscious again, and to realize that you're being put every second, every present, you're put in front of a choice. But that's not a real choice. There is only one choice, which is to choose the light, choose truth, because, there's nothing else in the world, just truth. And so there is no real choice. And so the perception that there is a choice comes from deception, comes from these deceiving strategies that were constantly put in front, like they're constantly used against us. Deceiving strategies like, you should drink alcohol. No, you should not, because through time, it's gonna make you get lost, and then you have to heal from it. Or you should get pills for, psychosis, or like a lot of pills that are used to treat things like depression are actually very, very poisonous for us, extremely poisonous, and actually perpetuate this state of unconsciousness in which then we become just machines and zombies that make these unconscious choices all the time. Yeah, and I'm sure you have experience of that, so we can talk about that too. It's like your face says everything.
Yeah, I mean, I tell you, like, of everything that I got involved with, of all the things that I did, once those pharmaceuticals are their next level, especially the anti-anxiety medications, the Xanax, like it was,
Xanax.
oh my God, it ballooned to where for years I was literally, the second I would wake up, the second my eyes were open, I was not even where I would wake up in anxiety. I would wake up within a panic attack, and I was mitigating a panic attack the entirety of the day for
Wow.
years.
Wow.
And they would just give me more, or put me on an antidepressant, or say it's ADD, or whatever it was. And mind you, I was going. We have full authority over ourselves. I was going along with it because I wasn't prepared, and I wasn't able to do the work that said, okay, no more. I'm not going to use anything outside of me. Um, But one day I threw away all those pills in one day after having been on them for years. And I'm telling you, the recovery from just what happened to my body was far more dramatic than anything I'd ever taken before.
Wow. Yeah, absolutely. Because it's, while alcohol and other substances are really like a mix of substances that, yes, give you addiction, but they don't go exactly to press that specific button. And instead, pharmaceuticals are literally designed as one molecule that press an exact, very specific button in your brain, in your body. And that button, once you press it all the time, that causes a whole chain reaction that affects your body in such a holistic way. So the effect is
Mm-hmm.
holistic, but the molecule is, pointy, right? It's just one button, but it's crazy the negative effects the pharmaceuticals can have on our body, because our body is like an equation, right? And so the only way of healing the equation is to really fix everything that needs to be fixed. If you're misaligned, you need to realign. There's nothing else to do. If you try
Mm-hmm.
to add one thing on one part of the equation, which is the pill, then on the other side, a bunch of other things are going to appear that
Mm-hmm.
are just more misaligned. You're just creating a bigger misalignment, and you can't even get out of it, because then they give you addiction, and then the withdrawal symptoms, as you're describing the recovery phase, the withdrawal symptoms from antidepressants are huge, huge. Like,
Mm-hmm.
people have to go to rehabs for these sort of
Mm-hmm.
things. So first, and this is a criminal kind of thing that doctors are doing today. So I think there is a huge, huge movement that should start to really peer pressure the medical class to stop killing the population, because they're allowing pharmaceutical companies to kill the population in so many ways. It's crazy. And so I'm happy that you are really a living example of someone who has recovered. And I think, again, like, I would love to see pictures of you before, in the sense that I can see how your light now is beautiful. I don't think you had the same kind of light when you were on antidepressants, when you were on these sort of pills. And so the kind of alignment that you are experiencing today is just another level of health and wealth, because health is wealth. And so just another
Mm-hmm.
level of understanding yourself and choosing, being able to make that choice, instead of having that choice constantly just slipping away through the cracks of your unconsciousness, and then making a choice during unconsciousness. And there are so many people, I feel like we don't realize how much our society is maladapted to do that. Like, there's so many ways in which people who tend to be abusive, who have a deeper involved trauma, they are aware of this, moment of unconsciousness that we have. And so they have a whole bunch of strategies to make us do those things, from ego feeding to
Mm-hmm.
triggering our PTSD, from making us be upset, because every time we make this, energetic jump, and this oscillation, then we get misaligned. And when we are misaligned and we oscillate so much, we don't realize what is actually going on, because we're not present, we're not conscious. So maintaining presence all the time is so important. And I think you had, as always, our body is perfect, our spirit is, we are really guided to do what we're doing. And so what you've done, which was simply to realign, and what you did was to stay in silence, to stop all the stimuli from coming to you, so that you could sit with yourself and find yourself again. And that's all you needed. That's all you needed. And so people
Mm-hmm.
don't understand. And instead of having to put patches and take pills and do things and drink, and the only thing they need to do is really to just stay in silence, to just stop and reach within, and finally find their true self, so that the next choice is going to be rational instead of irrational. It is going to be to make sense and aligned, and it's something that they will want to cultivate in the future. Because every time we make choices that are not aligned with our true self and with the truth, then it kind of like bites us. It's like it gets
Mm-hmm.
back to us. And so it's unsustainable, as you went through 20 years of that. And then you ended up having to divorce and having to, so you had a lot of things that ultimately you had to abandon, you had to change, you had to recover from. So that means that all the times we make choices that are misaligned, those choices are going to be undone, are going to have to be undone, are going to have not just undone, as the antidepressants. It's not just that you have to stop doing that, you have to recover from doing that. And so
Mm.
every time we waste time due to choices that are really misaligned with from the truth, they're not truthful, they're not light, they're not bright, they're not beautiful, they're not love. Every time we do that, we're just creating a cage for ourselves that then we need to escape from, and then we need to recover from the captivity we had, and then we have to find ourselves again. So it's a lot of time that we need to waste every time. So it's really
Mhm.
like we need to start teaching our kids to choose their inner light, to choose their innocence, to choose their beauty, to choose, to realize that they're extremely valuable and beautiful. And I think the I love how you describe all the characters in yourself, because as you're saying, this is all parts of you. These are all parts of you, and the way in which you describe them, so beautiful, because that's how you describe you. That's how you're describing
Mm.
yourself. You use words like delicious. I don't
Mhm.
hear people using that word very much ever, you know? So yeah, because it's like, I feel like people tend to use the word delicious for food, but it's not true, because it's just like we heard this delicious, like multidimensional, tasty being that is just juicy and is incredible. Right. And I feel like a lot
Mhm.
of times we associate certain words with like sex or sexiness. And instead, this is a divine way in which you're describing your animals and your inner world, which is you. And so you have discovered from this trauma, you have finally realized how incredible and delicious and beautiful you are, and you're comfortable saying that, which is in itself beautiful.
Mhm.
And so you have when did you stop taking antidepressants? When did you stop taking those things? Those antidepressants, what were you taking, first of all? Like, I don't want to know the names exactly, but like, what kind of medications?
Well, it was Adderall, Xanax, and then I don't remember. I think I was I tried many different antidepressants. I remember Wellbutrin, I remember Zoloft, I remember I think a lot of them, probably most of them I tried, because ultimately it wasn't about that. It was about me being dysregulated. It was about me being out of alignment from myself, and about it was and ultimately I think it was such a blessing that I would be that I it, maybe it is, because everything is God, everything is divine. So perhaps it is the gift in these pharmaceuticals that you get worse and worse and worse by taking more and more and more, ultimately is the catalyst to what causes you to find yourself, because you have to go to the belly of the beast in order to realize you're not going to feed off the beast anymore. At least that's what it was for me. So that was when I started. That was the last step that I let go of before I started the 3 years of the meditation. So that would so the silent stillness and solitude. So that was 3 years up on the mountain, and then a year and a half ago, I moved down the mountain into community, and I've just been. So what's so beautiful is the cultivation of the kingdom within and all the characters within it, and I connect in every single morning with all of them. It takes me 45 minutes. And what's happened is it's really true, as within, so without, that in my in living in such a deep state of prayer and openness and listening, that which I'm seeking for myself in my life, meaning friendships, meaning, opportunities, invitations to you know fun, just fun, expansive activities or whatever. I love the dance community in Los Angeles and things that spin-offs from that, or whatever it might be, is just brought to me. All I have to do is stay open, and it becomes this really, the harmony that I feel within is now within the harmony of my life. And I'm able to share and connect and co-create by just listening and taking one step, putting one step in front of the other, and that which I'm seeking literally arrives at me. and I just have to discern to know, is this, is this meant to be? Is this for my highest alignment, my highest expression? And 9 times out of 10, it is, because anymore, those that don't even cross my path anymore. So I just continue to listen and put one foot in front of the other. And it's just beautiful harmony, symphonic life that I get to live with the universe. And it's for someone who never felt seen as a child, I really feel seen by God, by spirit, by the divinity that is within everything.
I love it. Yes, I love it actually. I feel like most people don't realize that um, sometimes living in solitude can be a lot more um, like feel like having a lot more company than what you believe you could,
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like
Mm-hmm.
I have the same experience in the sense that also in the past years I have shed away a lot of people, shed away a lot of things for various reasons. And sometimes, most of the times, the universe kind of gets to you in ways that you don't choose. It's just things happen around, this is the journey. As you're saying, everything is part of the divine plans and of the divine order of things. And so things ultimately happen to you and make you shed away things and shed away stuff, because then you can find your true self. Oftentimes we tend, your experiences stemmed from something very traumatic that is not very common. I mean, it is common, unfortunately, but what I mean is not necessarily everybody goes through the same kind of experience. But I feel like all of us, in different extents and in different ways, go through the same kind of journey, like the journey of trauma, unconsciousness, and then having to recover and awaken
Mm-hmm.
from it. And we all do that in different ways, and it all comes from one reason or another, making unconscious choices that lead us to the wrong path, to the wrong off track. And it's not even the wrong track in the sense that, again, it's like we all have to make this arc, and so the purpose of the arc is learning. The purpose of this arc that we make, which is included in the arc of our life in this planet. We're born and then we go around for a while and then go back to Earth. This whole purpose is really the whole purpose of all this is really learning the lesson and, at the divine level, reconnecting with ourselves, reconnecting with the divine, and reconnecting with higher frequencies so that we can evolve and really be one and really remember that we are one. And so it's just part of it. And so this journey that we all do it in different ways because we all need different things. We all need different ways of healing and different kinds of learning experiences in our way. And so everybody goes through the same path, everybody goes through the same things. And to me, it happened through toxic relationships, for example. It happened through toxic relationships, toxic work environments, things that traumatized me a lot and that induced me to learn a lot about, how incredible I am, how beautiful I am, how gorgeous I am, how smart I am, how powerful, how all the things that I can do for the world, my actual mission in the world is so high that I could not possibly realize that without going through all of those things, because it's like, you're not born one day and you're like, I'm going to become the president of the United States, or I'm going to become the Pope, people are not born with the idea, and our world teaches us to feel that we should be less, we should be, we should oppress
Mm-hmm.
ourselves, right? And so the idea of being so gorgeous, so beautiful, so incredible, and regardless of what kind of role you occupy in terms of job title, because job titles make no sense, again, it's just an egoic way of living. But like regardless of that, our real purpose, whatever at whatever level we are, whether we are a tree or a little plant or a mushroom in a forest of life and of society, we all have a divine purpose. But finding that divine purpose is really difficult initially. To, as kids, you will never conceive, I'm going to become this huge tree in the forest and I'm going to put a lot of shade on a lot of other plants and
Mm-hmm.
animals, and I'm going to be, shelter for animals and for insects, and I'm going to be helping a lot of plants to grow. You don't think that as a kid. And so for you to learn that value and to force you, the universe has to force you to choose your path, right? And it
Mm-hmm.
forces you through pain, and it forces you through
Mm-hmm.
understanding. You see that this is not your track, so you have to choose this, even if it sounds too much, even if it sounds like you don't deserve it, even if it sounds to you like you're not enough for it. This is your path. This is what you
Mhm.
have to do. And so I feel like most of it is really overcoming our ego in a way. I feel like a lot of people have this perception that overcoming your ego means to become humble. And instead,
Mm.
there's a big difference between being humble and being centered in your divine mission. These are two different things,
Mhm.
because you can be egoless and you can also be divinely grandiose. So that doesn't mean grandiose, like the deliciousness, that I'm talking about. I love this word, and I'm gonna use it for the title because it's just gorgeous.
Mhm.
um I feel like we don't realize that we can be big without being grandiose, without feeling egoically grandiose. We can be,
Mhm.
it's like, otherwise people like the Pope would not exist. Like, it's not that the Pope
Mhm.
feels grandiose because the Pope is the Pope, but ultimately he was a kid at some point. He was a little child. He had to grow. He had to have his experience. He was your age. He was my age. He was, he did all the
Mhm.
things he had to do, and then he became the Pope. If a kid will come to you and tell you one day, I'm going to become the Pope, psychiatric interventions
Mhm.
immediately, right? But this is the point, that our society tends to bring down so much our beauty, our value, our divine self. And we go through so much pain because of that, because we have to realize that we have to choose it. We have to realize that we have to align with it. We have to realize that no matter how much the world tells you you're presumptuous, you're not delicious, you're not enough. You're like, as much as the world tries to deceive you, you have to be like, no, I am all of these things. I'm incredible. You have to be able to
Mhm.
say it and to center in it and to teach others to do the same. And so I think we go through all of these arc of pain, ultimately to get back to be able to embody our divine purpose in the world, our divine mission, that as to our past self may sound grandiose, because in a society that is full of unconsciousness, nobody wants you to embody that purpose, that
Mhm.
mission, because that's the light that is gonna shine in the darkness, right? So nobody wants that. And so I think we all go through pain so that we shed away the ego that was suppressing that light and preventing us from really being that light, so that we are like, this light is the only thing that I have, and it is the only thing that I want. Like, as you're saying, like, I also went through a lot of meditations in which I found such peace, such inner peace, and such, like, I also discovered, I had a Kundalini awakening, and I discovered the joy and the love that the universe is at its core. And I got so lost into those meditations that I didn't want to do anything else than meditate. Like, if I had
Mhm.
time, I would have
Mhm.
only meditated, because it was so beautiful. It was so gorgeous to
Mhm.
just be there and feeling that feeling. I didn't want to do anything. It just, I stopped going out. I stopped going for clubs. I stopped going to do anything.
Mhm.
And I will just sit at night in my apartment and just meditate, because it will take me to this dimension of just pure
Mhm.
joy and peace, that it was so much more rewarding than doing anything else. And I found
Mhm.
myself being surprised of how beautiful that was, and how much I was choosing something that I would have never chosen before. But now I was like, I don't want anything else. This is the only thing that
Mhm.
I want. I could totally, and I understood why a lot of spiritual gurus go in caves and just stay in the cave forever. I will do the same. Like if this is the feeling that you have when you're finally away from the world and finally away from all these ego, and then you can feel
Mhm.
the joy of God, you can feel the joy, then what else do you want to do? Like, that's so beautiful. That's the
Mhm.
max pleasure and the max joy that you can feel. What else do you want to do? And so I think it's beautiful to give people the breadcrumbs to follow, because a lot of people, for various reasons, have had your same journey, and they sometimes think that you need to do expensive things, or even like I host retreats, I host workshops, I'm a coach, I'm a healer. But reality is that you need guidance sometimes, like you had your medium that guided you. But reality is that sometimes you don't need expensive things. You just need to sit in silence and to find yourself, and then it's up to you to also get help from the outside to help you uh, speed up the process,
Mhm.
because help helps, like whatever external help gives you a way to speed up the process and to especially when you have to do with mediums and people who channel, then they truly can tap into things that you in your unconsciousness don't see and don't perceive. And so they can customize the intervention in ways that can be very, very helpful. But if you don't want to speed up the process and you have a lifetime, you can just, sit in silence and
Hmm.
reach the same point in a sense. It's just a matter, it's going to take a little slower, maybe, or going to take a little more effort or a little more time. But reality is that we don't need pills, we don't need money, we don't need anything to heal. We just need to actually shed away things that we were putting on top, from addictions to pills to clothes to things that are really things
Hmm.
that we put on top that make us forget the true self, our true light.
I think I would add to that, the only thing you really need is courage, because it's, because all those layers and spaces and places within us, when they get gritty, they're gritty. It's no joke. Like, I'm not making light of this at all. I'm not, like, I didn't just, you don't just go sit and quiet, at the top of a mountain, and it all gets better on its own. I mean, it
Oh
takes
yeah.
resilience and a will. And because I was horrified by the things that came up, when I finally allowed myself to cry for the first time in my life, I think I cried for almost a year, just like cried, just, every single day was just at least one cry a day, with just, that guttural, deep
Yeah.
cries. Um, and just moving through the abandonment, or moving through, or also there was a very long moment of, am I going crazy? Because in my own awakening to myself, like, am I delusional? Am I losing it? Is this real? Is it, what is real? What is, and it was, so it's a lot to navigate alone. But and I have so much compassion. I was at a dinner recently, and one of the questions was, "What is your superpower?" And I really feel like my superpower is my compassion, because I have compassion. I get it. Like, I get it. I get all of it. I've been all the aspects of all the vileness of all this self, just, just the self abuse, and the abusing the situation around me, and navigating, and making it work, and and whatever it is. And I get why people numb out. I get why people are addicted to whatever it is, whether it's, media or porn or drugs, or,
It's
toxic
painful.
relationships, or, I
Painful
mean,
to go, yeah, to go through
it's
pain.
painful to be a human. It really,
It's
really
it's
is.
painful to go through trauma. I feel like what is the most painful is that our society normalizes numbing ourselves down. Like the fact that is
Yeah.
most, I feel like, we are going towards that. We're going towards healing as a society, and the fact that a lot of people now are using no makeup and like doing the whole no body shame and inclusivity, and all these movements that are arising are just the natural reflection of what is happening at the individual level in each one of us, which is we are going past it and we're realizing that ultimately what causes pain is not even the trauma itself, but the shame that comes with it. The fact of
Yes.
feeling that you're the only one, the fact of feeling that nobody's going to understand, which is what you've been through. Like, you've been through a trauma in which you didn't have an outlet to tell people. You felt judged maybe a lot of times. You felt ashamed a lot of times. You felt like it was your fault, and you didn't have anybody to tell these things to. So what really causes us to become addicted and to use these substances and to drift is not even the trauma itself. It's the fact that we feel like we can't talk about it. We feel like it's our fault,
Mm.
and shame
Hmm.
and guilt and all of these feelings are really the lowest feelings. Those are the real feelings. And this is something I had to work with by myself as well. And the things that came up as well are just unbelievable. And you have to have the courage. So I love that you said that, because I say it all the time that overcoming trauma and being the generation that breaks the cycle is not just about wanting to, make a choice, like, because otherwise it sounds like people before us had the same choice and chose in the wrong way. Reality is that it's also genetic and epigenetic capability. Like if people can survive only eating vegetables, they will only eat vegetables. If they depend on meat for them to survive, like carnivores, they have to eat meat. They don't have the courage because they can't make that choice. So the courage is ultimately also a capability of making a choice that comes from your genetic and epigenetic imprinting. Like you are the cycle breaker in your family. So the cycle breaker is a specific human being that has genetically and epigenetically cleansed from trauma. So then now put in front of the same choice that your parents had, because you have observed alcoholism in your family, which meant that your family also fell in the same trap where you fell, but they were not capable of getting out. And so instead, you're the one who overcame that. For you to be the one who overcame that, you have to be different. You have to be someone who is resilient enough to go past it, and courageous enough to make a different choice. And all that is really in your genetic and epigenetic imprinting. So you've been allowed also by your how you're being made, like you are the generation or the one that stops making that choice and makes a different choice, stops choosing lies and start choosing the light, stop choosing,
Mm.
all these unconsciousness and start becoming conscious, and stop choosing you're not enough and choosing you're beautiful, you're delicious, like all
Mm.
of these
Mm.
things that we are allowed to do that. We are the generation that is evolving from that trauma and is finally breaking the cycle and deciding, no, this time I'm going to be making a different choice. This time I'm going to be,
Mm.
I am enough. I am beautiful. I am divine. I am all of these characters. And there's nothing that can tell me that I'm disposable, that I'm not enough, that I'm not this gorgeous person that I am, and that I have to be this. So this is really to say that, I love that you said the courage, because the courage really comes from, it's like meeting an animal in the forest, like an animal in nature. It's like when two deers fight again. I think it's a deer, right? Like they fight against one another. Like I'm talking about words in English
Mhm.
that have their horns, and then when they
Mhm.
when they
The
fight,
ram.
the ram. So when they fight, the first thing they do is they show those, what the equipment they have for the fight. And ultimately, if one has bigger ones, that one is gonna win, regardless. Is not the fight is not even gonna start, because that one is like, I'm just better equipped than you for this fight. And so in nature in general, this is how nature makes choices. Like when we are equipped to go past it, when we are equipped to be resilient, when we are equipped to go past the whole journey, then we go past the whole journey. And things that are presented to us that other people have succumbed after, then we can overcome those things. So the reality is that you are an incredible human being. You have really, um, you have been built to bring this light in the world. Like you have been built to overcome this journey and the fights, the kind of abuses you have received. Ultimately, you received them because you were capable of overcoming them, and for you to find out that you were stronger than that, that you were more capable than what you believed, was for you to go through these things so that you overcame them. And you're like, wow, I'm incredible. Yes, yes.
Mm. Mhm.
I love that you have become this incredible person today, and you've always been. You just had to find out and to realign with yourself. And realignment is really, really very joyful feeling. I think I say it all the time that the feeling of joy is what you feel when you are aligned, no matter what you're doing. Even the crazy
Mm.
thing in the world that for some people appear like crazy, and instead you're doing that, it's because if it gives you joy, it's because you're aligned with your divine mission, with your divine purpose, with your divine self. And all of these divine characters can be very useful. A lot of people, different people have different ways of connecting with their different parts of themselves, but these characters that you're using can be very useful to give you the courage to understand, to keep you aligned in this, to give you the wisdom, the courage, the motivation, whatever you need to stay aligned in this path and to keep shining and to be aligned in that sense. And yeah, I wanted to ask you someone else, like, about, especially to go a little deeper in this time in which you decided ultimately to go and photograph nature, I feel like that's a very interesting topic as well. So what did you actually, you got a camera, did it with your phone? What kind of things would you do?
Well, I started with the phone, I believe. Yeah, the phone. And then my husband at the time, he bought me a camera, and I could feel in my heart and see in my mind's eye something that I was looking for, but I didn't know what it was that I was looking for. And I was on a walk in Santa Monica, and I photographed a picture of a Japanese magnolia flower in the springtime. And something in that image, just like something within me awoke with that image.
Hmm.
And I knew I wanted more. So I started with flowers, just getting deep, deep, deep into flowers. And um, wherever we were traveling, I would take, I would photograph the flowers. So I have these spans of time. I have like over 70,000 images from that time when I was photographing. And I remember being in Colorado one summer, and it was like they said, it was one of the most colorful summers on record, meaning everything was in bloom, at a very exponential level. And I would go with my daughter, and we would go on these walks at the end of the day, and we would gather a bunch of flowers, and we would dump them into our bath, and for our nightly bath together. And that's when I would get in, and I would have so I would play with the light and the water and the flowers, and piled on top of each other. And just the deeper I would get, because at one point, I don't think it started as a macro lens. And then he got me a really nice macro lens. And when I could really get in there, and the digital cameras back then, you had a little more rain over them. I don't really know what they are like now, but I think that they're a little more structured in terms of the settings. So I just left the settings very loose so I could just do what I wanted to do with them, because I didn't know anything about photography. I didn't know anything about cameras. I still don't, but I knew it looked good in the viewfinder. And so that's what I would do. And then the flowers moved to lichen. It moved to moss. It moved to trees. It moved to leaves. It moved to clouds, rainbows. And that's ultimately, as as that aspect of my life, and myself was getting closer and closer to a time of needing to repair, needing to heal, needing to tend to the deep wounds, the undealt with trauma. Um, that's when I was just the creativity would it was like it was inverse relationship. As I would spiral more, I would create more and more. And interestingly, I think that the what I was producing and creating was getting more and more beautiful. So that's when I started uh, then taking the images and turning them to patterns, and through Photoshop. Very simple. I wouldn't alter anything. I wouldn't change anything. I would leave the color. I would let nature do what she does best, which is be beautiful and shine. And I would just work with whatever I found, and as she was, and then just mirror it, flip it, rotate it, whatever it was, and then repeat it. And watching the inside of a dandelion then become a pattern, then be printed on like a silk as a wallpaper, and then fill a room is so beautiful. Or to watch the same pattern and see what happens to that on like a hemp charmeuse or a silk velvet. They all, when you give it the context of the 3D, so it's not just the image and the photograph or the pattern in the 2D, then watching it become 3D within the fabrics and the textiles, and then layering them for like a multi-dimensional pillow with different trims on it, and just allowing nature to build on herself, the pattern on the pattern on the pattern. It was so beautiful, everything that I created during that time.
Wow. Wow. Imagine being basically like, imagine printing all of this on the walls, and then you're basically inside a dandelion.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
Mhm.
my gosh, this is mind
Mhm.
blowing. This is incredible
Mhm.
what you're doing. And I think you should definitely continue doing what you're doing. Like keep doing that because it's like first of all, it's I think you should, I don't know if you've ever thought of like having a startup or actually asking for funds for this, but I think you should definitely consider like applying to like what's it called? Like women grants and things like that to like start your
Mhm.
own startup
Mhm.
in this sense. Because a lot of people will be very interested in like covering up their walls or like sleeping on a bed that is made of a pattern that is ultimately just a creation of nature just taken to the next level, right? It's not
Mhm.
just like because it's not just about, I think, there are a lot of people who take pictures of a flower and then make a bed sheet out of it, but what you have done is next level. Is like you have created, just allowing nature to create, to reach the next level geometry through your body as a vessel. So what you've done is just like you basically help nature to reach the new version of human beings that are being created on our planet, like the new evolved version of us, which is more attracted to these geometrical patterns because of the parts of the brain that we are activating. And so you have really took nature to the next level of beauty so that people who are particularly attracted to patterns because of their evolutionary biology, like neurobiology, um, they can appreciate nature from a different perspective, from a different angle, and really feel that they're into a dandelion thanks to that. And I would
Mhm.
love to give your context or like your website and where people can find your book, or if you're offering any sort of workshop or any sort of service of any kind, or where people can find you. So I'll give you a couple of minutes to just say something about where people can find
Mhm.
you.
Well, so you can find me at toriwildebird.com. ToriWildebird. Wild is in like Oscar Wilde, Wildbird, and .com. And then I also have an Instagram, although I'm not super good at the Insta. It's new for me. So it's at wildbird underscore. And I just did a bit of printing, a small run of printing of the books. So I have some books, and I'm hoping to be able to have on the website very soon the ability to purchase the book. But if somebody's interested in the book, just send me an email. There's an email link on the website, and I can get you a copy, no problem. And I just did an event that was really beautiful at Moonistar in Topanga, which is a gorgeous store and hub and really beautiful community center space in Topanga on the back patio with a friend, where I did an immersive reading sensorial experience where I read from the book a little bit from each part of the arc of the story. And my friend Tihani, who's an amazing musician and facilitator of space, she's also an amazing vocalist, and she plays the bowls and she plays the ukulele. And so with each sharing of the reading that I did, then she created a meditative moment that integrated the words into a very powerful sensorial experience that was profound, and people loved it. So there'll be more of those to come for sure.
I would love to go.
And yeah, definitely. And I intend to build a big art show where you actually go through the seasons of my life, where you're immersed in the patterns and listening to the audio, because that's what the words are. They're the audio from those times,
Oh my gosh, I can see that. This is beautiful with all these
right?
textiles and people going through them and hearing
Mm-hmm.
different things in different sections. Oh my gosh, I have a vision. Let
Mm.
me know if you need help. I
Okay.
really love it. I really love it. This will be beautiful because I think it's about storytelling, because you can make an art show that is all about art, but when you couple your own journey, your own story, and the meaning that those things have for you, it's just another level and can become a tool for awakening. And so this is why, like, because I feel like when I ask you if you want me to introduce you as a healer, you're like, I'm an artist. I'm an artist and a writer. But reality is that you are a healer, because we don't
Mm,
realize that there are a lot of different tools for healing. And one of these is art. And it can be music, or it can be entertainment, or it can be visual art, like in your case, art or poetry or recordings or any of those things. It's all healing. Your entire journey that you have summarized in a book and in these textiles is ultimately a healing tool. Because what is healing? Healing is us walking through the journey to get to the other side of this arc that we have to make. And sometimes people can do it on their own, and sometimes people need guidance. And that guidance can be in the form of a therapist, can be in the form of a medium, can be in the form of animals or spirit animals, or can be in the form of a book or words written by people who have walked the same path and can take you by hand for you to do the same journey. And I think this is what you're doing with your book. And I think it's really beautiful, and it's a beautiful healing tool for so many people that have gone through the same or similar experience, or really for anybody who is walking through the journey of life, because this is the same journey that we all go through. We all go through unconsciousness, we all go through trauma, we all go through different kinds of
mhm,
abuses, and we all have to get out on the other side to see how beautiful the joy and light and the divine self that we are. So thank you so much for being with
mhm.
us today, and for
Thanks,
shining your light
Nancy.
through this podcast, and for allowing me to borrow your light to bring it up and to give people exposure to it. And yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all next time.
Bye.